Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Thank you for joining in. We're here for our February Parents webinar through our Partners in Learning series. And this month, we're giving focus to why studying isn't working. That's a question so many parents ask here. Why studying isn't working. So, what we're doing today is that we're taking time to do a midterm reality check for parents to make sure that you're super clear on some of the core things you should understand, especially if you're seeing that your child is working, but you're not really seeing that result, you're not really seeing the grade that you're looking for as yet. I trust that, some of what we talk about this morning is going to really help. Yeah. So I want to start by just acknowledging the fact that you clicked and you logged in and you're here and you're watching and you're listening, it means you're clear. And we're going to clap for that because so many times as a parent, I know it's easy for you to feel unappreciated, like people don't understand what it takes. But listen, it takes a whole lot. I'm super happy that you're here. And the fact that you are here tells about the kind of parent that you are. And of course, this session is not about blame, it's not about telling you you're doing something wrong, and it definitely is not about comparing children. What this morning really represents is a safe conversation about understanding why studying doesn't always translate into results, especially around midterm time. Because two things could be happening. On one hand, your school could be doing midterm exams that would give you an idea of how your child is performing. But even if your school is not doing midterm exams as a separate exam set, chances are you could be comparing weekly test results or even how they're functioning with their homework, and you could possibly having some challenges. Yeah. So listen, take a breath. You're in the right place, and we're gonna jump right in because at this point, in the term, many parents are saying the same set of things. My child is struggling. We're buying books. We're sitting with them, but the marks just not improving. And for some parents, the worry is a bit deeper because now they're starting to wonder, is something wrong? Am I missing something? Is my child not trying hard enough? So let me say this: midterm struggles are common. It's not necessarily a sign of failure, but it's often a sign that we need to adjust how learning is happening. Yeah. So what we're going to do, let us get into our presentation so that we can have some visuals to support some of what you're listening to. And then we can get started. So can we get the slides presented, please? Awesome. So next slide. Next slide. Excellent. So yeah, so we know that this is an important conversation because we're recognizing that as a parent, parents generally, you're doing your best, but you're still feeling unsure of your child's progress. It's a common experience. And this morning is all about clarity. Yeah. So why we're saying my child is studying, why aren't the results improving? Let's talk about it. Here's what I want us to hold on to today. Studying is not the same as understanding. Oftentimes, if you take a look at exam papers, you would see in a column, usually on the right or at the bottom, you will see some letters KIE, and a lot of parents probably never wondered, well, what's that about? Some kind of magical code? No. Oftentimes, for examinations purposes, the reason you see those letters on the exam script is because K represents knowledge, I represents interpretation, and A represents application. Why? Because generally speaking, we want students to at least be able to do those three fundamental things. We want to make sure our children know they could recall, they could define facts. We want to make sure they understand, meaning the interpretation says my child not only knows the fact, but understands what it means. And then A for application means that my child can take that knowledge and understanding of what the thing is and they could use it in a new scenario. So let's talk about it. If it is, we're saying studying and understanding is not the same thing. It means that a child could sit with a book for hours on end. A child can write down all the notes. Your child could even be memorizing paragraph under paragraph and still not truly understand what they're learning, which means it's not going to translate when test time comes around. When understanding weak, pressures of examination exposes it. So, one the first thing we want to pay attention to is that as a parent, when we start thinking about what's happening with my child when they're getting into the work and when they're studying, the fact that your child is studying, I want you to know that does not necessarily automatically translate into understanding. So, when our children are studying, we want to be able to check in to see are you reading or are you understanding? Right? And in very simple terms, it means if your child is studying, revising, they have their book, they have their study cards, they have their definitions. The conversations that you have during and or after should involve what is, what does that mean? How does it work? Why do you think it is so? These are some very basic questions that parents can incorporate into their dialogue. So here's a quick blanket, something I want to steer parents away. Instead of just saying to your child, do you understand? And they say, yes, mommy, yes, daddy. Instead of going down that road, ask them, what did you read about? Okay, tell me what it is. What does that mean? Can you give me some examples? How do you use this in school? How would you use this to answer a question? These are some very basic questions that if you were to incorporate into your daily language after homework and revision time, it can really transform. As simple as it sounds, it could really transform how your child perceives information and how they're able to use information. Yeah. So when we talk about studying versus understanding, studying often looks like reading notes silently, highlighting, rewriting information, memorizing definitions word for word. Studying. But when a child understands, it means you're able to move from that point to being able to explain ideas in their own words. They're able to tell you what they understand it means. This, however, does not take away from the fact that there are many subjects where students just need to learn concrete definitions as are provided through the textbook or given by the teacher. But having said that, they still should be able to explain ideas in their own words. So if you're making a mental note, or even if you're using your phone to make a list of things to keep in mind for future reference, aside, in addition to what I mentioned earlier about the questions that you should ask during or after revision time, I want to encourage you, have your child explain ideas, and ideas here could mean definitions or whatever they're revising, explain it in their own words. Another way that understanding shows up is that they're able to connect ideas across subjects. So, for instance, if it is that we're learning about something in math, because you understand it, you could also understand how that understanding can apply to science or how it can apply to social studies. Yeah. Of course, answering questions accurately without guessing. A lot of times, thinking about it tends to become a cop out for some people that really what they're doing is guessing. Really, what they're doing is they're unsure, but we phrase it as, I'm thinking, I'm not sure yet. So, what you're looking for is accuracy. We want to see when I ask you something, when I ask you back a definition, I ask you to give examples. Instead of having to hum, you can answer accurately without guessing through. And of course, we're not going to forget the importance of applying knowledge in new situations. So think about it this way. Uh, Many children are working hard, but sometimes they might be working at the wrong level, meaning they're working at studying and the skill of studying and trying to perfect the skill of studying without understanding. And we want them to understand as well. Yeah. Great. So let's continue on and let's chat a bit about what we're seeing with students right now, meaning that across many students at different schools, different backgrounds, we at VLC, because we support infants, primary, secondary, through our Saturday programs and through our academic wellness clinic, we see a lot of the same patterns around midterm. And this is why we see when you see challenges with your child, it's not that something is wrong with your child. It really is a common experience among most children. You know, when we think about students who come in for our math, grammar, creative writing classes on a Saturday, and even many of our children who come in on a Saturday afternoon for reading classes, we see some core things going on. We see them guessing in their comprehension. We see weak or incomplete definitions. So I'll give you a good example. That is why one of the things we have here at VLC is our Learning and Study Skills program, because oftentimes students get really great at capturing notes, but they're challenged in their ability to memorize those notes. So for us here at VLC, by offering a learning and study skills program on a Saturday, what we do is that we teach them effective study techniques that helps them to overcome having that experience of always having weak and incomplete definitions. And more than that, um, yes, it's great that we have hands-on oversight here to really guide them through the process. But what I really love about that particular program is that it allows them, and over the years, I have seen it over and over, where it allows students to become independent learners. And that's what I think I love that the most. And so I really want to encourage you parents, look at their definitions. Don't let them say, and something like that. Anytime we start using terms like, and something like that, we say stuff and thing. No, then what you're saying is not complete. Yeah. Also, challenges, what we see, answers that don't match the question. Sometimes what a student might say is factually correct, but if it doesn't answer the question that was asked, you will get it wrong in the exam, and we have to keep that in mind. Of course, difficulty explaining why an answer is correct. Remember, never be afraid to ask why, moms and dads. Never be afraid to ask why. Why do you think this? Why is it done that way? Why are we using that method? Even simple things like math, we're doing the math and you choose division. Tell me, why do you believe that division is the right operation for that question? These questions and these check-ins revolutionize the way students process how they do what they do, and it helps them to challenge themselves and their thinking and to be more accountable when doing their work. And let's not forget giving strong effort but having weak output. And these often show up in like your English comprehension, your science, your social studies, your math worded problems, which brings us to something that parents don't always expect that we're going to see in the next slide of the presentation, which is the hidden role of reading. One of the things I continue to see, and it's a reason why our reading program here at VLC is one that is always ongoing, is because we're always in a space of having to encourage parents, as I'm doing now, to remember that reading isn't a one-off thing. Oftentimes, parents tend to have this heavy focus when the child is at the infant level to learn the alphabet, get the sounds, all of that. And when they reach, let's say, standard one or even standard two, they start to go hands off because they say, yes, my child could read now. But I want to encourage you, parents. I want you to remember reading isn't like a one or stagnant thing that once you've learned to read, you've learned the alphabet, you've learned letters, blends, and all that, that your child got to go. No, because the same way you are all aware that when your child goes to the next academic level, the work increases in difficulty and becomes more complex. It is the same way the word building and vocabulary increases in complexity and becomes a more complex experience. So yes, a A is a A and a B is a B. Yes, digraphs are digraphs and diphthongs are diphthongs and vowels are vowels. That doesn't change. But the exposure to it, the way it is used and how it shows up in their vocabulary development changes drastically from one level to another. And if it is that we are not supporting our children to make sure that at their level they're able to maintain their reading skills development, that reading challenge that begins to happen as they go to one level to another begins to impact their ability to get work done in the other core subject areas. Because reading is not just an English subject. Let's think about it. Reading affects understanding questions. It affects your child's ability to follow instructions, learn definitions. How do they learn a definition that they cannot read well? It affects the ability to answer accurately across subjects. Because if a child struggles to read carefully, if a child struggles to understand meaning across different types of sentences or understand what the question is that's being asked, then studying becomes exhausting and oftentimes ineffective. And this is why you hear children say things like, I was studying, but the exam felt confusing. It's not because they were lazy, it's because they were overloaded, that there were things involved in the exam that when it was presented now, they were not able to work with it. They were not able to comprehend. And reading skills makes a large part. So again, if you're taking notes, whether it's a mental note or you're clickety clicking on your phone, whatever, the next thing I really want to encourage you to make a note so that you be mindful at every level, pay attention to your child's reading. Not just could my child have read well last year or year before, but at the current academic level, is my child keeping up well? Yeah. And if you're not sure, talk to your child's teacher, talk to your principal, get advice. Don't just, you as a parent, don't just sit and be confused. Talk to somebody. If it is for any reason you don't have that resource in the space where you are, then get private support. Do what you have to do. Yeah, because our children, this is important for our children and their development. Yeah. So let's talk about what makes a difference. Here's an encouraging thing. We see improvements when students learn to read for meaning and not and just read through their work. Because some of us, some of our children, they're always ready to dart through everything. No, we want to slow it all the way down and reading for meaning. Following steps consistently, something you could continue to encourage your children and to follow steps consistently. Answer only from the text. Something may be true, but if it wasn't written in the passage, you can't put it as an answer. These are some core things that we could be encouraging our children that would make a difference in how they're able to produce answers. Let's not forget the importance of writing complete sentences. Oh my word, listen, at VLC we see it, and we're always encouraging our children. And I'm happy to see the growth of our children, by the way. Like I was so excited. Mini story time. I was so excited. I was telling some of our teachers yesterday when we were doing a review of student comprehension skills for our standard 4 students between week 1 and week 5 that we saw for most of our students a 20 to 25 increase in grades in comprehension section. And so I was so excited because really what it is a sharpening of all the things that we're talking about. Reading for meaning, following your steps, answering only from the text, writing complete sentences. All of these things is what has worked together to help. I use Standard for as the example because I was specifically reviewing that level. But yeah, it's exciting that when you could see student grades grow and improve and change, and these are simple habits, but they create really powerful change. So I encourage you to consider it and incorporate it in support that you give. Because your role to mummies and daddies are critical. And I'll tell you why. Because oftentimes, especially when they have homework, you are the ones they come to for help. And if instead of encouraging them in the understanding of how to approach it, you get busy giving them hints to the answers, what we do is we cripple them instead of enable them to do better. We don't want to cripple our children. What we want to do is enhance their ability to be able to be independent in doing it correctly. And your role is a critical role in ensuring that we're not crippling them. Yeah? So, what can you do this week? Let's make it practical. Instead of asking, did you study? How long you read for? Difficult things, try asking or saying to your child, explain this answer to me. Why did you choose this? Where did you find that in the passage? You don't have to teach them the information. That's not what I'm encouraging. I'm not saying parents become teachers. No, 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 that's not what it is. What you're doing is checking for understanding. Yeah? Because when you do that, you're able to reduce that overwhelming experience that so many of our kids have. You shorten study time, and of course, you get to focus on them being clear about the work and not just saying, oh, they did 25 questions. No, we don't just want a lot of questions to be done. What we want to make sure is that they're clear and they're understanding about what they have to be done. Yeah. Okay. So let's pause and let's be clear on something. Your child is not broken. You are not feeling as a parent. I want you to remember that learning gaps are common, but they are fixable. Yeah. But in order to fix them, they must be understood properly. So that is why when we give support, we want support to be targeted, we want it to be consistent, we want it to be calm. And that's why we're here with the Partners in Learning webinar series where we are able to support you through this. So I really appreciate you. Thank you to everybody for logging in. I trust that you got some key nuggets that you're going to take into the next week or month. Remember, we're here with Partners in Learning, the webinar series every third Saturday of the month. So I'll see you guys again in March. So don't panic. It's going to be all right. Yeah. And if you need additional support, don't hesitate to reach out to our academic wellness clinic. We are here to support, whether through consultation or other recommendations. The point is, we want you to have the information that you need to be able to take the right steps to move forward. So if you do need to, reach out to us, 368-1505. We're going to be happy to hear from you. Be sure, share the video if you think another parent is going to benefit. We trust that these points help. And until then, take care. Bye, guys.